Welcome to Practical AutoCAD and Inventor, your source for practical information about implementing AutoCAD and Autodesk Inventor. Be sure to like and subscribe to this channel so that you get all of our latest updates. This video is going to discuss the design process and the advantages to using Autodesk Inventor, and it's going to serve as the initial video in our Inventor series, taking you through a step-by-step logical sequence of how and why to use Autodesk Inventor for your mechanical design projects. So our objective in this first video is going to understand how using Autodesk Inventor can improve your design process. If we look at the traditional design process, it has a few steps. The first step is to define the scope of the project. What is it that we're trying to design? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? And this really hasn't changed from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. What is it that we've got to do? Okay, so you're defining the problem, and you're coming up with solutions. A lot of times these will be sketches on napkins. You're working with groups of people. It could be anything. From there, you go into ideation. Okay, and again, traditionally, this was creating two-dimensional drawings that represented the actual three-dimensional object. A lot of times there would be discussion about what it's supposed to look like and what views we need and all those kinds of things. Would there be any section views? Where do we place the dimensions and so on? From there, a physical prototype would be created. Sometimes it might be milled out of steel or made out of wood. In the auto industry, they would make clay models, full-size models of the cars. It just depends on what you're doing and what your industry usually did. And then once that physical prototype was made, they would test it. They would put it into use. They would see how it works. From the information they got from that testing, they would go back to the original idea, and they would create and revise those two-dimensional drawings so that they could come up with a better prototype. So then they would continue on again to the prototype, create a new physical model, and then they would test it. This process of creating physical model after physical model after physical model is slow and expensive. And so this is the traditional design process. But Autodesk Inventor and other similar products change this process in the following way. If you're using Inventor, defining the problem is still the same. And again, maybe the initial ideas, again, happen on scratch paper or on napkins or in groups of people or whatever it happens to be. But in the ideate process, instead of making two-dimensional drawings that represent a three-dimensional object, you go ahead and you create a 3D model of what it is you think you're going to need. From there, you create a digital prototype. That 3D model actually does serve as a digital prototype, and you can create an entire assembly, all of the parts that will be necessary to actually see if this thing's going to work. You can put them together, you can check to make sure that they all fit properly, and so you're testing it in what we call the digital environment. You're creating a digital prototype. There's no physical prototype that has to be made. It's all digital, so it can happen very fast. In addition to being fast, there are other things that you can do, such as finite element analysis, or FEA. You can simulate loads on this object, tell the computer what it's going to be made out of, and it will tell you where it could likely fail. And you can even actually have the computer suggest changes to make the project a little bit stronger. Once you've tested it in Inventor, you go back to the 3D model, and rather than having to start all over again with brand new drawings, starting from scratch, pencil and paper, you simply update your model and make the changes, which again, you're updating your digital prototype at the same time because it's all related. You're not starting over from scratch, you're simply just making tweaks, and you can see how that works in your in assembly. And so you're basically creating this circle and tightening it all up. One other advantage is as you are creating this digital prototype and you're putting it in the assembly, you may be coming up with new ideas that you can implement right away again, so that you're kind of testing and doing all of these things one at a time. Now, looking at Inventor, this is a model that I have in Inventor of a clamp that might go on a lathe, and you can see that I've already modeled it. One of the nice things about Inventor is you can come in and you can put finishes, you can tell it what it's made out of, everything that you might need to know about this object. In the big window pane over here on the right hand side, you actually have your physical model. And you can zoom in on it and you can get as close to it as you want. Up at the top, you have on your ribbon, you have all of your tools that you're going to be learning about as you go through this video series. And over here on the left, we have what we consider to be a digital history of all of the things that we've done. And you'll see that it starts off with the very first extrusion that I have here, and then all of the other things that I've done in the process of manufacturing or digitally prototyping this part. And it is actually a history. If I come in, I can look at these individual sketches and I can make changes. And any changes that I make here will be changed in the prototype. So if I look here, the distance, for example, from the center of this arc to the center of this arc, I have as 3¼ inches. If I decide that I need to make that bigger, I can simply change this dimension. It updates it here. When I choose Finish Sketch, it updates it here as well. So I can make those changes on the fly. I can see what happens. Now, not only am I working with just one simple part, but I can also look at that in the context of the entire assembly. So you can see here I've got several other parts put into place, like some set screws and some spacing screws, washers, nuts, a little anvil down below, so I can actually test this thing, make sure that it works the way that I want it to work, everybody's happy with what it looks like. Once you've done all of your testing here in the digital environment, then you can actually go through and you can create your drawings. So if I wanted to make a drawing of this part, and I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to undo that last change that I made because I don't really want that to be 3¼ inches long. Let me come in here and double click this. I'll make that 3¼ inches long like it was. Finish this sketch. I can go in and I can create a drawing of this so that we can send it to the floor and our machinists can actually manufacture it. Moving to the drawing environment, it's actually quite simple. I have my base view, and Inventor automatically will create any of the views that I need to have, including any section views or anything else. Not only that, but all of the information from the model is in this drawing here. So if I wanted to, for example, I can right-click on here, and I can retrieve those model annotations, and I can say I need to have this information, pick those dimensions that I want. I can put those in this drawing. I can reposition them wherever they need to be so that now these are actual dimensions of the actual object. But as an added bonus, if I decide that I want to make changes, I don't have to go back to that original model. I have the option of changing them here. So again, this is that dimension that I had changed to 3½ inches. If I right-click on this dimension, right-click on this dimension, I can give it to me here. Right-click on this dimension. I can edit the model dimension, make it, again, that 3.5. You can see how it automatically updates all of the drawings in this view, but it has also updated this part again. So it's completely flexible. I can update and change any of those aspects of my design within reason at any point in the design process, from the very beginning in the ideation to the very end when I'm actually making the project.